As winter melts away and the days grow longer, spring brings the perfect opportunity to refresh, reset, and explore. Whether you're chasing cherry blossoms, craving culture, or simply looking to relax with fewer crowds and better weather, spring is one of the best times to travel. We've rounded up some of the most sought-after destinations this season to help you plan your next getaway. In today's episode, we'll give you the top 5 spring travel destinations and what you will want to see in each location. We're Scott and Melissa, the Sunshine Travelers.
We're all about exploring the world and sharing the journey with you, whether you're a seasoned traveler, dreaming of your next adventure, or just here for the stories.
No matter where you are on your travel journey, we've got firsthand experiences, tips, and plenty of inspiration from some of the most amazing places on Earth.
So buckle up and get ready to travel with us.
Melissa and I are thrilled to extend this incredible invitation to you. Join us on a truly unforgettable group trip to Antarctica. This journey promises to be the adventure of a lifetime, and we can't imagine experiencing it without you. We'll be traveling on the luxurious Atlas Ocean voyages aboard the World Voyager, a smaller ship designed to bring us closer to the majestic landscapes and extraordinary wildlife of the region. The World Voyager is not just any ship, though. It boasts a reinforced hull for navigating icy waters, ensuring safety while allowing us to explore the stunning Antarctic terrain. Onboard amenities are designed for comfort and pleasure, featuring inviting lounges, a pool, a hot tub, and the spectacular Water's Edge observation area where heated seats and binoculars await as we watch for wildlife. Don't let this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip away. The cabins for 2026 voyages are filling up rapidly, and we would love for you to be a part of our adventure. Visit sunshinetravelers.com/group trip for all of the details, including pricing and how to reach out to us with any questions. Booking is easy. Just a deposit is required right now, with flexible payment options available up to 120 days before sailing. Imagine the breathtaking moments we'll share among glaciers, penguins, and endless horizons. We truly hope you can join us on this amazing journey.
So we think that spring is one of the best times to hit the road or the skies because mild weather, fewer crowds, and some truly unforgettable seasonal experiences in lots of places.
Yeah, so whether you're in the mood for some romance, maybe you want to get away for a nice romantic trip, or you want to go and experience some rich culture, or maybe even just a fresh change of scenery. Maybe you're tired of the gray winter skies. We've got you covered with some great ideas for your next getaway.
Yeah, so in today's episode, we're sharing our top 5 spring travel destinations. Okay, and so those are going to be Rome, London, Paris, Lisbon, and Tokyo. Each of these cities brings something special to the table this time of year. And we'll tell about why they made the cut, what there is to see and do, and a few insider tips from our experiences along the way. Scott, I'm curious to see if we're on the same page on some of these. So let's find out which destination earns our top spot at the end.
Let's do it. And we're going to have some episodes that you can go back and listen to for these destinations, so that you can go back and dive just a little bit deeper into each of them. But today we'll talk about why you should visit in spring.
Yeah, and I absolutely love spring travel because it feels like the world is waking up again. A lot of places where you live, and even though that we're at the beach, it's not like, we've had a pretty, I wouldn't say rough winter, but just a different winter, a cold winter, a wet winter, a lot of gray skies. And so it just feels like that you get out and enjoy a lot of things that you don't see in the wintertime. So I think this list really captures some incredible places that are even more magical this time of year. I definitely have a couple of personal favorites, and you'll probably kind of hear that when we talk about some of them, and that just kind of comes natural to those destinations for me. So I'm curious to see which ones stand out for you too. And so let's jump in and start exploring these amazing spring destinations.
Well, what I really like about spring travel is that you don't have to plan as far in advance as you do when you're planning a trip in the summer. So today we just booked a trip for the middle of May And thankfully, it was very easy to find accommodations.
Yeah, and flights, and there were still a lot of options. I mean, even when I was choosing seats for some of those, and a lot of these places are in Europe, there was a lot of empty seats. So I think the peak summer books well in advance for most places. And so you really have to take that into account. So it's a little bit easier for spring, especially if you need a last minute getaway. So the exception to that is probably going to be number 5 on our list. And you'll find out why when we get to it.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. The first place on the list is going to be Rome, Italy. And we talked about Rome, and I think we said 48 hours in Rome. Rome has gotten notoriously crowded over the last few years. And visiting during the summer, it's really hot there.
Yeah, it was very hot. So when we were there last, it was in June. And I just remember when we went to the Colosseum and the Roman Forum, it was hot.
Yeah. And so, it's nice to get there and be able to see this during the time when it's not quite as crowded and it's not quite as hot. And as far as like the attractions, it doesn't matter if you see them in the spring or summer, they're the same.
That's true. A lot of the historical attractions.
Yeah, the historical attractions because they're ruins, right? But there's other things that happen in Rome during the spring, and spring is the only time that you can catch that.
Yeah, so I mean, it'll be waking up and having the blossoming trees and the piazzas, and I think just the right amount of crowds too. So I don't know how much we're going to kind of pass through Rome in a few weeks. I don't know if we're going to kind of have a chance to sneak in. So why in spring? And I think a lot of these things we're going to list out are going to apply to multiple places. So you might hear them again. So let's start with what we talked about being hot, but you're going to have a lot more comfortable weather. And I think you're going to need what we always talk about, layers and stuff like that for this time of year.
Yeah. And then in all the gardens and the parks, you're going to have everything in bloom at this time of year. But the thing that most people might be interested in trying to catch in Rome during the spring would be all the Holy Week celebrations.
Yeah.
And that would be a time where it's not going to be less crowded.
Right. It would be less crowded, but I think that would just be a really special time to go, right? Something that you just can't experience any other time of the year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely all kind of starts at the Vatican for these celebrations, but then on the other side, just outside of Holy Week and the celebrations around that, it's good to know that it's their shoulder season. So pricing is going to be a little bit less as well. And when we say a little bit less, got to remember, Rome is a very expensive city.
Yeah, Rome is an expensive city. And I guess we didn't realize that from our last visit, because I do remember on our last visit, we used points, but we were kind of outside the city and didn't pay real close attention to the maps and stuff like that. And so this time we want to be near the train station, and it was definitely. So I can only imagine that in high season, how much more expensive that is. So just definitely something to factor in when you're planning a trip anywhere is the season and high season. So let's chat real quickly about our must-dos and then what you think that you need to book ahead of time.
All right. So if we're going to go to Rome in the spring, what are the things we should do?
So we did talk about that a lot of these things you want to go no matter what, but we think that you definitely want to do the Forum and the Colosseum, and make sure that you go into the Colosseum, and better yet, do the underground tour, right? When you're there, when in Rome, right? Go see some of these things that like you might not ever get to do again. And again, that mild weather before that summer heat sets in. And then if you go back to Rome another time and you've checked that off the list and it's super hot, you've done that. So we definitely recommend on this one that you book a tour ahead of time. We've talked to people who didn't do that and then thought they'd get tickets and then didn't even get to go in. And so I would be very frustrated at that. So book tickets ahead of time. We like to use Viator. The one that we did was on Viator, and it was the Roman Forum, Colosseum, and the underground whole tour. It was several hours, but it just really gave you a perspective. I think when you go to these places, it's one thing to see them, but then to really understand what it is you're looking at. So definitely that one.
And if you do that tour, just know that you're probably not going to do anything else the rest of the day, because that was a really long tour.
Yeah, and I would say don't do another tour. Right. That's a great tip that I had forgotten about. Yes. Don't book another tour. So don't do the Vatican in the morning and then try to do this one in the afternoon or vice versa. Spend the rest of this day seeing some other stuff, just kind of exploring some of the smaller things that you want to see, or just, getting some good food.
Gelato.
For sure. Yeah. So another one is wandering through the Orange Garden that is on Aventine Hill. And this is near where you would go to the Keyhole at the Knights of Malta. So this is a really good place because it's an amazing garden. And so going this time of the year, you're going to have a lot of stuff in bloom. And then it has a really nice view of the city as well.
Yeah. And then, if you can get there in time, you may not be able to do it this spring, but if you're preparing in the future, try to attend Easter celebrations at the Vatican. And if you're going outside of Easter and that Holy Week, make sure that you're doing a guided tour of the Vatican as well, because that was one that we really enjoyed. And because we had the tour guide, we were able to book an earlier time. We got in before the crowds, and because we got there before the crowds, we were able to get into some of the places before they just got overran with people. And so we got to see some of the great sights without having thousands of people surrounding us.
And the Sistine Chapel was really the main one, right? We got to go in very early, and then she actually took us back later just to see it again, but I mean, the room was completely full. So that would be the advantage of booking that. Yeah, for sure. So the other thing on the list is to see the Spanish Steps with the flowers in full bloom. So apparently they have hundreds of azalea plants like brought in. Like, this is a special thing. And originally it was done in the feast to attract people, to get people to come and visit.
So it's like the masters of Italy.
I guess so. But I did see some pictures of this, and that would just be a fantastic sight to see. So very, very interesting. And then, like you mentioned about the Easter, so look up what the protocol is, because we haven't done this. We can't tell you specifically, but look up what the protocol is to do some of the outdoor services or the outdoor masses that they would have around the Vatican during that time.
Well, check out episode 67. So for more information about, like I said, we got a podcast episode of 48 hours in Rome.
And we also have a little Rome mini guide. So if you go to sunshinetravelers.com/guides, there's that Rome mini guide and a lot of other guides. And I'll put the link here, but the easiest way is sunshinetravelers.com/guides. And so that has all the tours that we did, has some suggestions for hotels, and just a lot of different stuff in that little mini guide that you can grab for free.
Good. Let's keep moving. The second place should be no surprise, and I'll hold off for just a minute on that, but is London, England. And so, Melissa, how many episodes do we have on London now?
So I think we have 4 that at least include some part of London. And so we'll list those out. So they started in episode 5, and then in the middle we had 63 and 70 and 103. So I'll list those. But an easy way to get to those and anything is to go to Sunshine Travelers Podcast. And then go to the podcast page. There's actually a search bar. And so you could type in London, and it would show you all those episodes about London. Same thing with Italy, for example.
So that would sunshinetravelerspodcast.com. Why London in the spring?
London in the spring, it's a vibe. I mean, and I am always so excited when we have the opportunity to go, because we've been in January before, and it was cold and it was gray, a little more gray, right? And cold. But a lot of times we've had the opportunity to go in the spring when the sun is starting to come out and the flowers are starting to bloom and everybody is starting to get out. And so I think it's just a really exciting time. Just a few weeks ago when we were there, there was the baby geese and stuff like that in Kensington Gardens. And so if you've been to London in the spring, then you know what I'm talking about. So highly recommend that, because everybody wants to be outside. So, and then on top of that, if you can catch the cherry blossoms in all the parks, there are so many cherry trees. Now, it was a little bit early when we were there, so I would say April probably is the absolute best time for that. Riverside walks on the Thames, which we did get to do. The first signs of the beer gardens opening up and people just spilling out onto the street. So it's just a really fun time. And also, as we learned, Shakespeare's Theater opens back up for the outdoor plays. And then just having great weather to explore not only the parks, but the neighborhoods. Richmond, like we talked about.
But you say great weather, and I don't know that people in London would agree with you that the weather's great in spring, because they're going to have a lot of rain.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that when you pair it with all the blooms that come out, I think that is also and the days when it is nice and you will see that everybody is outside, right? I think they just ditch everything, right? And they're just like, okay, we're just gonna go outside. But the blooms. And if you've seen so the parks, like the way that they plant these with the gardens, with the flowers and everything, it's beautiful.
Well, I think the key here is make sure you invite the Sunshine Travelers to go with you, and there'll be sunshine there.
Yeah. So here's a few ideas besides. So if you go back and listen to some of those episodes that we've talked about, like it's going to tell you, and we're going to tell you the things, the attractions to go see. But let's talk about special in the spring and give you some ideas. So a few years ago, we went to Kew Gardens in the spring.
Yeah, Kew Gardens is magnificent.
You need like a whole day for that. Like it's a whole thing. You can have lunch out there. But if you don't have time to do all that, just pick a park. Kensington Gardens is beautiful. The walk from Hyde Park to Kensington is beautiful. I mean, just any of the parks, but you'll start to see those daffodils and the tulips and the cherry blossoms and then just all the spring flowers.
I think one of the tips that I would give you, though, is if you're going to go to Kew Gardens this time of year, take a pair of shoes that are waterproof and you don't mind getting dirty.
Yeah, that's probably a really good tip. And we had just missed, by the way, so early spring, they also had like an orchid, like a whole orchid festival. And then we did go to Hampton Court Palace a couple of years ago. And it was the Tulip Festival. And that was magnificent. So Hampton Court Palace would be another one.
Yeah. But definitely in Kew Gardens, because I remember there was some parts of the gardens. I mean, definitely they have the paved paths, and that's all good. But then there were parts where you kind of walked a little bit through the woods and the grass. And I could imagine that, in the wet season, that might be kind of muddy.
Yeah, because it's like on like their woodland gardens and stuff like that too. Yeah, for sure. And the other thing too is as you're going to Buckingham Palace, there's so many like parks just right there. And there's little coffee stands and places that you can get coffee and, take it with you and stuff too, which is the other thing that I just really love. And so then also just picking a place and enjoying a spring afternoon tea. What I've started to notice is that they just have all these themed types of afternoon teas, right? So it's just not, well, I mean, there's places you can go that's just afternoon tea, but like this hotel will have a theme and this other one will have a different theme, like of just like current type of things. But then you've got Easter, right? And then you've got Mother's Day, which in the UK, it's a little earlier than the US Mother's Day. But so they're going to have like all these kinds of different spring, I would say, like tea themes. So just pick something like that. That would be something really fun and festive. And the other spring thing that we absolutely love to do is go to Fortnum and Mason and like just look at their Easter treats. Like even if you don't need them, we've always tried to find an excuse. Okay, who can we buy some little, because they're just absolutely beautiful. And so that's fun just to walk around and see those neat Easter treats at Fortnum and Mason.
It's also a good time to try to catch the Chelsea Flower Show. So if you're there in late May, then there's also all kinds of little pop-up garden shows and exhibits across the city. Great time for the flowers to be there during the spring.
And Scott, this is on my list. So sometime we have to coordinate for the flower show. But if you can't make it during that time, I would say definitely check out one of the markets. Now, a lot of the markets are open year round, but the thing about going in the spring, right, is because you're going to have the better weather and the better temperatures, but then also you're going to have starting to see this seasonal produce, right, from some of the local producers. So, of course, like the big ones like the Borough Market and stuff like that, but we went to the one in Richmond, right, that had the artisanal bread and the food stalls. Then as spring comes on, they're going to start bringing in that produce. So just be on the lookout for those as well. Something that you may not think about, right? Because you're so focused on, I want to see this church and the Tower of London and the bridge and the London Eye. But I think that helps to bring more of a local, right? A local feel to is visiting those markets.
And so give yourself at least a week in London.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be worn out and you'll never see everything. So you shouldn't ever think that you're going to go to London and see everything in one trip. Give yourself a week in the spring. You're going to want it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to want to just slow down. You're going to want to slow down. You're going to want to enjoy the parks. You're going to want to enjoy the gardens. And so, some of the other things, the attractions that you might want to see, you need to have more time. so that you can slow down and enjoy the other things.
Yeah, because honestly, that is one of my personal favorite things to do is just literally just take a walk in the park. And because you can like not have a plan, right? And you can just kind of crisscross, and then there's a coffee stand, and then you can grab a bite to eat. And if you have kids, there's playgrounds everywhere. And so I think that's just a really great way to experience London in the spring.
Yeah, so you can pair it with the Go City London Pass, and then also just do the walking around. Easily, you'll fill up a week in London.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, like we mentioned, we have all those episodes. You can go to sunshinetravelerspodcast.com, type in London, and they'll pop up. We are working on a London guide that we probably should have done a long time ago. So, kind of keep an eye out if you're not following us on Instagram or Facebook at Sunshine Travelers Podcast. That will be out in a few weeks. And so, we'll give you more information about that.
Great. Well, what about Paris, France? We talked about a romantic getaway earlier. And what a more romantic place to go to than Paris, France.
Yes. And same, I would say, as London, right? Because again, we have been in kind of the grayish, coldish part of January. And so same thing, just as everything is like starting to bloom and waking up. So we still need to go back and do Versailles. I would imagine that is fantastic in the spring as well. Just being able to walk along the river and having picnics and going.
And it's not hard to do a picnic in Paris. You just go to a local shop and you get a loaf of bread and some cheese and some wine, and there's your picnic.
Yeah. And one of the things that I was going to mention too is as the local markets, like we mentioned in London, as the local markets start to open up and getting that seasonal produce. Now, I wouldn't say that we did that necessarily in Paris, but we have done it outside of Paris in a little town. And as the strawberries, I think we got like a thing of strawberries and what you're, like some meat and some cheese and the bread. And then I think we found we didn't have a blanket, right? So we just found like a park bench and just had our little picnic. But that would be a fabulous thing to do in the spring. And then if you do have a blanket or whatever, but just as you're starting to get that local seasonal produce, because I think what you may not think about, because you're like, okay, big city London, big city Paris, they don't have things like that. But I think that is such a part of in France and in the UK is they have all these farms just not far outside. So then they bring that stuff to the markets and you just get fresh, local, seasonal produce.
You know what I think would probably be neat is to go up to Montmartre in the spring. And so while those artists are there year round and they're painting, they're going to have just a whole new backdrop that they're painting in the spring. And so you'll have all the floral, mixed in with it and stuff like that. I think Montmartre would be really cool to go to in the spring.
Yeah, 100%. And that's just another place where you can just get out and walk and be outside. We have a really special piece that we bought in Montmartre that's hanging in our home now that reminds us of being there in our trip. And it looks just like the place. So 100%. So a few other things is just to visit those gardens like around the river. And they're just not the same in the wintertime. Right. But as they start to bloom, how fantastic that is. And then also just taking a cruise down the river or walking along it, but just, getting a cruise down the river as well.
And in May, they also have this thing called Night of Museums. And so the museums will be open late and for free. So you're going to have a lot of people, including locals, who are going to go and visit these museums during that time.
Yeah. And what I love about this is that in that way you get to have the daytime to spend some time outside, right? And then the things that you want to see, at the Louvre, at the Orangerie, see the Monet and all that, then you can do that in the evening. We didn't do this in the spring, but we did do the Louvre at night when we were there in January one year. It happened to be open late. And not only did you get the lower crowds, that it gave you an opportunity to have time to do something else. So I think in the spring, that's a great idea. You have more time outside, right? Instead of being inside the museums. And then in the evenings, then you can enjoy that.
And I always recommend Rick Steves' guide on the Louvre if you're going to do that. He kind of has the things that you really want to see, the big list and where to find all of those. But then, if you just want to see certain things, he helps you find where they are in the museum because that museum is huge.
Yeah. I mean, because you could spend weeks in there and see. But so that's a great tip. Probably we should also share that. It's a great tip for the British Museum as well, because they have the audio guide that's free and kind of guides you through that.
Well, check out episode 68 for more on Paris. We have I think it was 48 hours in Paris as well, an itinerary that you can look at. But once again, during this springtime, you're just going to want to plan to spend as much time outside as possible.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Well, where are we going next, Melissa?
So another one that we really love is Lisbon, Portugal.
Yeah, Lisbon. It's interesting how Lisbon got onto our list of places. If we go back 6-7 years ago, we didn't know a whole lot about Portugal, maybe more about like Porto and those areas. But because I had a meeting in Lisbon, or right outside of Lisbon, we had the opportunity to explore this area, and we have just fallen in love with Portugal because of that.
Yeah, and I think so much so is that our kids recently did a trip there after, we talked about a lot of the things. And so why Portugal in the spring, though? Pretty good weather. Way fewer crowds, but much, much more affordable.
Yeah, I think Lisbon's going to have pretty warm weather this time of year. That seemed to be my recollection.
Yeah, I think as we've done 2 in the spring trips, early March, and then I think we went in early May. So there was definitely a huge difference. Like it wasn't uncomfortably cold, I would say, when we did it in early March, but it was definitely way May. But I would say it was pleasant weather, for that whole time period. I think it was really good weather. And so it's it's a beautiful place to visit with fantastic food. And then again, if you can do the springtime, you're just not going to have the cost and the crowds as well.
Yeah. Well, I think Portugal is a more reasonable place to travel, unlike London and Rome, where they're going to be more expensive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're definitely going to have the touristy areas, but I agree. Like, I think overall, it's definitely going to be. And the thing about the Lisbon area is that you can have all the city things, right? So you can do the things that you think about for Lisbon. So a few of the activities, for example, are riding the famous tram, the tram 28 through the historic hills. A lot of times the windows are open, right? And if it's sunny, you can visit the castle, St. George's Castle. It's at the top of this hill. And it's just beautiful to like look out over that. You can kind of see the ocean and, beyond that, you can visit the monastery and grab pastel de natas close by. But here's the other thing is that Lisbon is so close and so accessible to a lot of other, right? So there is a wine region. So, I mean, a lot of people might be familiar with like the Porto wine region and up a little bit further, but there is Arabida and Sesimbra wine region wine tour that you can take. So this is the one that I did. I actually just got it from Lisbon, but if you wanted to, rent a car, you could kind of do this on your own. But there are, it's just beautiful. It's more hilly. It's not like huge mountains, but you feel like you're more in the mountains. So they've got the wineries that you can stop at. One of them even. So I think you're right, because one of them even when I was there in late February, early March that time, we actually did the wine tasting outside, like in their vineyard. So, I mean, very pleasant weather. We stopped at a beach. And so just right close by, you can get the city, you can get the wineries, you can get the beach as well. And then again, close by, if you've done everything you want to do in Lisbon, you can go up to Sintra, where again, you can spend a lot of time outside. So yes, go into the Pina Palace and starting to see the gardens there, and also the gardens at the Quinta La Regularia. I'm not sure how you say that, but
I don't know why you even try to pronounce these names.
So I don't know how people would know like where I want to send them. So anyway, we have these linked. We also have a little guide for Lisbon, and so you can know, okay, what tours is she talking about? So we do have a little Lisbon mini guide in that same place. But the gardens there are beautiful. You can walk, I wouldn't say hike, but you can do a little walk through the woods to that Moorish castle. And then the other place that's close by that's great to be outside just for walking, they have a little small beach there, is Keshkai, which I always said Kesh, but I think it's Keshkai. So, but that is just a beautiful place, right? They have a lot of places where you can sit outside and eat. And I would say just find that fresh local seafood, sardines and a lot of fish and stuff like that. But then my favorite place, which I always recommend, is that if you like mussels, the Mules and Gin, which we sent our daughter and son-in-law to, and they absolutely loved it. Thank goodness, because I rave about this place. And so, yeah, so there's just, I would say, I mean, yes, you might want to go to these other places, but right around Lisbon, I mean, there's so much. I mean, you could fill up a week just right in that area.
And then there's a lot of spring festivals around that time, like the Lisboa Film Festival or the Festas de Lisboa. All these things start kicking off in the spring. And so these are great times to visit Portugal as well.
Yeah, and that's the other fun thing about, like, if you can catch these festivals and the flower show and stuff like that. I mean, that's something that locals go to and locals enjoy as well. And so it's just a great way to feel a little bit more about the culture too, and not just visiting those sites. So again, for more on Lisbon and that surrounding area that we've kind of mentioned, check out episode 38, where we talk in detail about all those. And then again, if you go to sunshinetravelers.com/guides, we've got a little mini guide for Lisbon and those surrounding areas where we have the links to the different tours and the things that I cannot pronounce that we recommend.
Are you looking to plan your next unforgettable adventure? At Sunshine Travelers Experiences, we specialize in helping you create tailor-made travel journeys that turn your vacation dreams into reality. Whether you're craving a relaxing beach escape, an awe-inspiring cultural journey, or a thrilling outdoor adventure, we can help. Why choose Sunshine Travelers Experiences? Personalized itineraries designed just for you, expert travel advice and insider tips, seamless booking from start to finish, exclusive access to top destinations and hidden gems. We also book cruises, all-inclusives, groups, tours, and so much more. If you're unsure where to even start planning that bucket list trip, start by asking us. Then let Sunshine Travelers Experiences handle the planning so you can focus on making the memories. Explore now, sunxtravel.com. If you have any questions, email us info@sunshinetravelers.com. And then finally, Tokyo. So Tokyo is a great place to put on your list for spring. And I would say number one because it's just not so hot.
Yes, that's true. So in episode 81, we interviewed my sister Stephanie, and she gave us a fantastic itinerary for Japan for a week. But that was one thing that she mentioned, right? Is that it was quite warm.
Yeah, we haven't been there ourselves, and it's still on our list. Maybe it's somewhere we'll find this fall as we're looking for a destination to Asia. And like I said a couple of weeks ago, I think, I have heard April 22nd is the day to look for flights to Japan.
Okay. So I need to set a reminder on my calendar and do that. So while this one might be a little different as far as we're talking about, shoulder season and stuff like that, but why do you go to Japan in the spring?
The cherry blossoms.
Yeah, hands down. And I think that is interesting because, I think we have been exposed to so many places because of, number one, the internet, but then number two, social media, where we see all these things visually. But my whole life I've heard about the cherry blossoms in Japan in the spring.
And, one thing I would never pass up is a good festival in these Asian countries, right? They do festivals like no one else. And so I looked up to see what kind of festivals are happening in Japan in the spring. And I came up with the Three Shrine Festival. And it's one of their, most vibrant festivals and really significant for them. And they hold this every year. It is in May, and it's the third weekend of May, and it's in the Asakusa district. And so here's my chance to not pronounce something correctly. But this year, if you're looking for the exact dates, it's May 16th through the 18th.
Yeah, because you never know. Like you may, find yourself there and say, okay, I can hit this up. So yeah, so we did some research and read about it, parade and processionals. And so again, that gives you a chance to explore something, right, that brings you into that local culture that the locals are going to be a part of as well.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about the cherry blossoms. you can find cherry blossoms, I think, late March through early May. So if you're going in the next few weeks, the further north you go, the more likely you are to find cherry blossoms in their peak bloom. But if you're thinking about that and you want to definitely be there during the cherry blossom time, put that on your calendar for maybe next year, is something that you want to do in kind of that late March time frame. And I think closer down to Tokyo is when they start in late March, and the further north you go is it kind of staggers.
And that's what you're going to see, like even in the US, right? If you think about it, there's a big cherry blossom festival in Washington, D.C., right? But that's going to be later than the cherry blossoms bloom, say, here in Florida. Yes, we do have those in northern Florida. In Atlanta, we used to have one in our yard, that was fantastic. But that is going to vary. So keep that in mind as you plan your itinerary, is that where typically they bloom and when. So do a little bit of research for that.
Great. And if you're thinking about a retreat this spring, or you're looking for somewhere to go this summer, make sure to reach out to us at Sunshine Travelers Experiences, and we'll help you craft a personalized trip.
Yeah, we have lots of different ways that we can do that. So if you kind of like to explore the way that we do, where it's kind of more on your own and you're doing your own itinerary, but then we also have ways to send you on trips that are completely guided, right, from start to finish, and somebody is taking care of all the details as well. And you have somebody, I would say probably more like what we did in Egypt, right, where we were picked up by a guide and they took us around. We have ways to organize all that as well. So you can find more about that at sunxtravel.com.
Well, spring really is one of the best seasons to explore the world. Whether you're chasing cherry blossoms in Tokyo, sipping espresso in sunny Roman piazza, or wandering through flower-filled parks in London, we hope this list of our top 5 spring destinations has inspired you to plan your next adventure. If you've been to any of these spots or have a favorite spring destination of your own, we would love to hear about it. Be sure to reach out to us on social or drop me a message at scott@sunshinetravelers.com. The world is full of sunshine and surprises. Make 2025 the year that you explore beyond the familiar. That's a wrap on this episode. We hope it gave you some inspiration for your next adventure.
If you enjoyed the show, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps others find us and keeps the travel conversations going.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss a new episode.
And come hang out with us on Instagram or Facebook at Sunshine Travelers Podcast. That's Travelers with 1 L.
Most importantly, share this episode with a friend. You never know, they just might become your next great travel companion.